Bonjour, Kinamaginene Ireland Indignicas, and welcome to this presentation of Social Studies Television. Today's episode, the conclusion of Chapter 3, Section 3, the establishment of New England. We'll begin here back on Google Earth for a little referencing of where we're at here. This is Michigan, where we are. You have the Great Lakes. There's also a body of water that runs along here, which is also part of our migration story. Down here we have the southern colonies, Virginia, the Carolinas, Maryland, Georgia. In this region, we have what's now known as New England. We remember that England was over here. A lot of the initial settlers or colonists in this area were coming because they wanted to control their own religious communities. They used the term religious freedom, but we found yesterday that it's a little bit off. Originally, the settlers here were looking for down here, but a storm had blown them off and they ended up in this region. The current U.S. states in this region include Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. So let's look at this PowerPoint presentation of the New England colonies. There is a copy of this presentation saved within the Google Classroom, so you can go back to it if you need to. The four New England colonies, really at the beginning, it's the Massachusetts Bay Colony. As you can see, it includes modern day Maine and current Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island. And you can see most of them are founded somewhere in the range between 1620 and 1638. So their founding is over a 2-decade span. A New England village would be based around obviously the meeting house. There's always going to be a church or a place where the minister can preach his sermons. There will be things like mills along the river because they use water power to turn the equipment. And you're going to have people that build things like a cooper that would make buckets and barrels, blacksmith to make the tools and even the shoes for the horses. We had stocks here. That's where, if you were naughty, you might get put in the stocks. There might be an inn, a shoe shop, furniture maker. You're making all of the things that you needed in these communities, and they're kind of spread out about the town. Not all towns are going to have a covered bridge. Sorry. Primary jobs in New England: the blacksmith, someone who works with metal; a teacher, yay for us; a carpenter, that's someone who builds; a potter; and a chandler. So those are all jobs that are based on necessity and the natural resources around them. You heard him mention yesterday the Mayflower Compact, signed by 41 English colonists on 11 November 1620. So literally 400 years ago, almost to the date of when this video is recorded on November 10th, 1620, or 2020. We're going off here. It was the first written framework of government established in what is now the United States. The compact was written in the hopes that the Pilgrims would pledge to work together for the success of the settlement. Keep in mind that there were separatists and there were other people who were just looking for a new life. So they wanted a way for them to work together. One thing I like to always point out, the Pilgrims and the Puritans are not the same thing. Mayflower Compact may have served as inspiration for the creation of a meeting house in the center of each New England town. The meeting house was a place where religious services and town political meetings were held. At town meetings, settlers discussed and voted on many issues. And when we say settlers, we're talking about white male landowners. Everyone else was barred from participation in the political process. The geography and climate of the region, it was difficult land for colonists. The rocky soil was poor for farming. It was situated on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. The colonists were subject to long winters and short growing seasons. This region is well known for what we call nor'easters, these big storms that come up in the fall and really through winter. They'll bring high winds and either heavy rain or heavy snow. It's on a similar latitude as we are here in Michigan, so you know that it's not, 75 all winter long, like you might find in more southern areas. They did, however, have lots of good natural harbors, which encouraged trading. Harbors are protected areas where boats could come in and dock and load and unload, but they weren't right up on the ocean where they were susceptible to huge waves. There was also plentiful forest full of riches like animals to hunt and trees that could be cut down and sent to sawmills. Religion. The Pilgrims originally left England and settled in Plymouth for religious freedom. However, as Plymouth blossomed and became the Massachusetts colony, the settlers were not tolerant of other religions. As we mentioned yesterday, it was religious freedom for them, not so much for anyone else. John Winthrop, who was a Puritan leader and founder of the Massachusetts colony, described their settlement as a city upon a hill, set up a strict moral code at the settlement stating, "The eyes of the world are upon us." No ego there. Winthrop and other Puritan leaders did not like anyone to question their religious beliefs or the way the colony was governed. Usually, colonists who were unhappy were forced to leave, because of religious freedom and stuff. You can see in here, this is the stocks. You might see these in places that kind of like museum style places, and what would happen is you would literally be put into one of these and you would be sit out there, and at best people would make fun of you. At worst, people might throw tomatoes at you. Not an enjoyable experience. And it wasn't always for, major offenses. So obviously we just mentioned that some were exiled out of the colony because of, religious freedom and stuff. Some colonists who left Massachusetts founded other colonies in New England. Roger Williams left Massachusetts and created the colony of Rhode Island because he believed the Puritan church had become too powerful. Anne Hutchinson, who had been persecuted in Massachusetts for publicly voicing her opinion about the church, also fled to Rhode Island. Hutchinson and others believed in toleration. Toleration is allowing others to practice their religion freely. Eventually, those two colonies will unite to form what is now Rhode Island. Another settler, Thomas Hooker, left Massachusetts because he believed the governor and other officials had too much power, set up the colony of Connecticut, and created a government with strict limits placed on those in power. All of these names will come up at various points of your social studies education, and they're good to know. So we have now reached the end of this mini lesson here. And in conclusion, what would your life have been like if you lived in one of the New England colonies in the 1600s? Now you're going to place yourself in the colonial camp for a minute. Obviously, as life for the indigenous people is going to be different because of our cultural and really religious political differences. So in this episode, I want you to put yourself in the place of a European living in the New England colonies. It says, based on the notes and readings we completed in class, you're going to write a diary entry describing what life would have been like living in the New England colonies. It should be about 6 sentences long. Include the colony name you chose. Any one of them is fine with me. Describe the geography and climate of where you live and what you do for a living. And you can check out the notes that are on the New England colony. That's posted in here as well. Be creative, but historically accurate and appropriate as well. Assignment will be collected and graded. And you're going to actually turn it in via the Google form or by a sheet of paper. Hopefully by the conclusion of this lesson, you'll have an understanding of the colonial lifestyle for New England so that we can compare it later with lifestyles and what it was like in the middle and southern colonies, and also comparing it to our Anishinaabeg ancestors who were living in the same areas. So there's a lot of things to compare as we go through this. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at mireland@sitechipschool.net or attend office hours at 2 p.m. daily. And always remember, there is a live stream every morning when we're in class that you could come and attend these sessions. Hope you all have a minute, Gijigad. Mama P.